Thank you very much. As I am aware that the participants are not from the law field, and the topic which has been allotted to me, that is the role of Supreme Court in ensuring women's rights. So, first of all, it is important to consider as to where from the Supreme Court has been having the power to play its role as an interpreter of the fundamental rights. Now, we all know that India is a country which is governed by rule of law, and constitution is the supreme law of the land. And under that supreme law of the land, this Indian judiciary, that is the Supreme Court, has played a crucial role in framing and interpreting the law to uphold women's rights and dignity in India. Now, so far as the Supreme Court role for the rights of the women are concerned, we see that the progressive judgments which have been delivered by the Supreme Court since independence, the Indian executive and the legislature, they are also bound to frame the laws to uphold the rights of the women. Now, so far as the legal position is concerned, we all know that India is one of the few countries in the world where maximum number of laws that protect the women and to empower them are available. And as I told you that the Supreme elects Indian Constitution through the fundamental rights, fundamental duties, and directive principles of the state policy that guarantees the equal rights to all of citizens. And as we start with the preamble to the Constitution of India, then we find that the five initial words of the preamble to the Constitution of India, that are we the people of India. So from the very beginning, we see that the law has not made any discrimination between men and women. And we includes everyone. It is not speaking of the male or the female, because we includes everyone. So we the people of India, and the last five words of the preamble which speaks about that gives ourselves this constitution. So whatever there is in the constitution, that belongs to everyone, whether it's a woman or it's a man. So there is no discrimination when we talk about the Constitution of India, which is the Suprema Lex. So in fact, what we see that there are several other provisions in the Constitution that also embody the spirit of the gender equality, and it also laid the ground for the framing of the policies by the government, framing of the rules and regulations by the legislature. Then there are certain mechanisms also to safeguard various programs which are meant for the women, for their protection, and more importantly, we see for the empowerment of the women rights and dignity. So this is how we see that the Constitution is a law which is supreme law of the land, and by various provisions in the Constitution, we find that the law is for the equality rights, law is for the dignity rights, law is for the privacy and other rights of the women, so that by exercising and enjoying those rights, the women can become empowered. So when we talk about the Constitution, as I told you, the preamble, then when we proceed further in the preamble, we find that it assures the justice, social, economic, and political equality of status and opportunity and dignity to the individual. Individual, that is both man and women are equal. And move further for the fundamental rights, that is part third of the Constitution. So the policy of the regarding women empowerment, it is well entrenched in the fundamental rights, which is there in the Constitution. For example, if we talk about Article 14, so Article 14 is ensuring the equality rights to all, that the state shall not discriminate among the people within the territory of the country. So this is Article 14, which is a general law for all the citizens, for all the persons. But when we further move for a specific law, Article 15, which is related to the equality also, then 15 clause 1 specifically prohibits any discrimination between the sexes. There are other grounds also, but sex is one of them. So in all the matters, there shall not be any discrimination on the basis of sex. Further, Article 15 clause 3, which is a specific provision for the women, there we see that it empowers the state to take affirmative actions for what? For making any laws, rules, provisions for the women along with children. But 15.3 is basically for a specific provision which can be made by the state. Though equality is there, but this is something, an exceptional clause for that equality. Further, in case of the public employment, in case of the employment and services under the government of India and the state's government, then we find that Article 16 clause 1, it again provides for any type of the discrimination will not be there on the basis of sex alone. There are other grounds, place of birth, religion and others, but sex is also mentioned in Article 16 clause 2. So if we talk about the equality, then we find that the Constitution confers equality right to all the persons who are the people of India, and to secure all the citizens what? Justice, social, economic, political and equality, and that is liberty and dignity. Everything that is mentioned in the Constitution of India in the preamble. Now further, if we proceed for the fundamental rights to part 4th of the Constitution, that is directive principles of the state policy. These provisions, as I know that all of you are not belonging to the law field, so these directive principles are not justiciable, meaning thereby whatever provisions are there in part 4 of the Constitution related to the directive principles of the state policy, they are not justiciable, that the person cannot go to the court for seeking any remedy on the basis of the violation of these policies. But there is a provision in directive principles that these principles are fundamental. These are very essential for the governance of the country, and that's why this is the obligation of the state to make rules, regulations, and to frame its policies so that these principles can be made available to all the citizen and person concerned. So there are particular articles which I will be talking about, the relating to the equality rights of the women. So those are, for example, Article 39A, which provides that a state shall direct its policy towards securing man and women equally, and they will have the equal right or adequate means of livelihood. So this is all relating to their rights of the equality as well as livelihood. Then 39D, it also provides or that the state shall endeavor for what? Equal pay for equal work. Now I'm just giving you a review or the provision that is there in the Constitution of India, so that when I will be discussing with you the case law, that is the decisions of the Supreme Court which have been there for the empowerment of the women, then these are the provisions in the Constitution which has been decided by the Supreme Court in view of empowering the women. So 39D is related to the equal pay for equal work. Similarly, we see Article 42, then we find that this provides that the state has to make the provisions for securing just and human conditions for work and maternity relief, because this is also one of the issue that whether maternity relief or this leave to the working women will be given only to those who are in the organized sectors, who are in the regular job or on ad hoc services also. So these are the issues which are there, and the provision is there in the Constitution under part 4, that is known as the directive principles of the state policy. Now another part of the Constitution which is known as the fundamental duties part 4A. Though initially this part was not in the Constitution, it was only after 42nd Amendment that this has been inserted in the Constitution, which confers the duties on the citizens of the country, that what are the duties, fundamental duties. Though again it is not justiciable or enforceable in the court of law, but these are the duties which every citizen has to follow. And very important related to women, that duty is 51A subclause E. Besides, because it starts for the common brotherhood and the harmony and all these things, but related to women, if we see that it speaks about that to renounce the practices derogatory to the dignity of women. So this is how we see that there is a duty which has been conferred upon every citizen to renounce the practices which are derogatory to the dignity of women. And then finally, one more provision in the constitution which is related to the political rights through which the women can be empowered. That has been inserted in the constitution by 73rd and 74th amendment. This is related to the block, panchayat, municipality elections, etc. So by this amendment, the constitutional provisions have been made, and the seats have also been earmarked for the women for the election in the Gram Panchayat and this Gram Sabha, as well as in the block, along with the municipality. So these are the provisions in the constitution which we find that these are sources where from the Supreme Court has taken the clue to interpret the rights of the women or to empower the women in field, basically equality, privacy, right to life, employment, as well as the dignity of the women. We are not going to discuss in details. There are so many laws which have been made for the women. As I told you, that India is the country where more and more laws are available for the women upliftment, for relating to the women. So very importantly, because all of you are working women and you are all working, so the things which you must know regarding how the Supreme Court has empowered the women, basically in the area of the workplaces, at the same time relating to the property rights, their marital rights, and at the same time equality in all other aspects. I'll be discussing only those cases. So first of all, you may be aware about the sexual harassment of women at workplace. So this is considered to be one of the most important case which provides the safety to the women from sexual harassment at workplace. And you know that India, which is a country which is governed by rule of law, was not having any law for this sexual harassment, prohibition, redressal, etc. till 2013. These type of the cases were there from the very beginning. Women were working at various workplaces and they were being sexually harassed, they were being assaulted also. So the only law that was in existence, Indian Penal Code, so that has to be proved without doubt, and then the case could be filed. But in 1996, you see that there was one case which was decided by the Supreme Court, and that is a very landmark judgment, and you all must be aware about that case. That is Vishakha and others versus state of Rajasthan. So this was the case which was decided by the Supreme Court in 1997. And in this case, some guidelines were issued by the Supreme Court so that in workplaces, basically this was related to the public institutions. It was not related to the private sectors. It was only for the public sector. So this judgment has given certain guidelines. Those guidelines were to be followed by all the public sector institutions and authorities in the absence of any of the law. So this was considered also as the judicial legislation, because you all know that the work of the judiciary is to interpret the law. It has to provide the decision. It is not to legislate, because to legislate is a work of the legislature, the parliament or the state legislative assemblies in the state. But this was the case where the Supreme Court has legislated. Supreme Court has given the direction that until the parliament makes the law, these guidelines would be considered as law. And this was a case related to one of the social worker. She was working for the state government of Rajasthan, and the purpose was just to prevent the child marriages. So at one instance, when she was trying to stop one of the marriage of a girl child, she was just 1 year old infant, and but she was not successful to stop the child marriage. and the family head of that family, he was some Ramakant Gujjar. So he, in order to take the revenge, that because why she had come to stop the marriage function, so in order to take the revenge for the humiliation which he has faced, he and five of his other colleagues, they raped this Bhamri Devi in front of her husband. So this case was considered to be one of the case because this Bhamri Devi, she was working for the state government, the Sathin Sanstha, and then she was raped during that time. So some of the NGOs, there were 5 NGOs, and Vishakha was the leading group for the women's education and research. So along with the other 4 women organizations, they filed a writ petition in the Supreme Court, and the issue was the sexual harassment of the women at workplace. And there was the absence of any protection, there was no law. So how to enforce the fundamental rights of the working women, this was the issue. And as I told you, the article which were taken into consideration were Article 14, that is relating to equality. Article 19, basically it provides the freedom, but here in this case 19(1)(g), which is related to the trade and business profession, etc. And Article 21, of course, it's a right to life and personal liberty. So on these 3 articles, this Vishakha has filed the case before the Supreme Court. In 1997, the Supreme Court issued the guidelines, and those guidelines were to be practiced by all the employers in public sector until the law is enacted. So these guidelines eventually also, we can say, form the basis of the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention Act of 2013, which is very, very important. And I don't know that how many of you are aware about the guidelines of the Vishakha case, which are now incorporated in 2013 enactment. Whether you are having in your institutions the ICC, that is known as the Internal Complaint Committee, who are the persons who are constituting this committee, whether there is a women is the chairperson or not, how many female members, how many male members. So all these were the guidelines which were given in this Vishakha case, and maximum guidelines have been followed in this Act of 2013. So thereby empowering the women employee not only the equality right, but right to live with dignity, as well as right to have the freedom to have the trade, business, profession of her choice. So Supreme Court in this case defined this sexual harassment, which is to be any behavior which is direct or indirect, as physical contact and advances, demand or request of the sexual favors, or any remark which is sexually colored, or showing to the pornography to the female colleagues, or any other unwelcome physical, verbal, non-verbal conduct of sexual nature. So this was the definition of sexual harassment, and similar definition is also available in 2013 judgment of this 2013 Act of this working women at workplace sexual harassment Act. So now it is obligation of every public authority to appoint a committee known as the Internal Complaint Committee. Now this act has also expanded what the Supreme Court has done, that is, it is now applicable to the private sectors also. And in private sector, it is the duty or the obligation of the district manager to district magistrate to appoint a committee known as the District Complaint Committee. So this DCC and ICC, these are the part for the working women. This is now in existence. Now this Vishakha case was further, we can say, followed in April Export Promotion Council case, a stenographer's case. It is a stenographer case where she was being harassed by the boss, and the case was filed, and the court has further we can say explored that Vishakha judgment and found that this is a case of the sexual harassment. Then in Medha Kotwal Lele, it was a case of 2012. As I told you that Vishakha guidelines have been given by the Supreme Court in 1997, and the act was passed in 2013. So you see that how many years, almost more than 20 years period, there was no law after that judgment. So in this Medha Kotwal Lele, this was another case related to the sexual harassment at workplace. And here the central government and the state governments were requested to consider for what? For adopting the suitable measures, including the legislation, to ensure that the guidelines which were given in the Vishakha case must be there, and that must also be extended to the private sector. So after this 2012, we see that in 2013, the law has been passed, and there are many cases on which we can say that this particular sexual harassment at workplace was considered by the Supreme Court as a violation of the dignity, right to dignity of the women concerned. So in this way, we find that Supreme Court has given the judgment relating to the right to privacy, right to dignity, right to work of the women, and all these things have been there in the Act of 2013. Now, second thing which I would like to discuss with you relating to the employment and all these things, that what is the judicial approach regarding sex discrimination. So many constitutional challenges have been directed to the employment rules, that is specifically restricting the employment of the married women. In 1966, there was one case decided by the Supreme Court, Bombay Labor Union versus International Franchise. This was of 1966 judgment. This was a ruling which, in this case, what happened that the unmarried women to give up the position when she is married, that was challenged. That a woman who is in job, if she got married, then she has to leave the job. So this was the provision in particularly there in that particular company, International Franchise. When the rule was applied to a particular department of the company concerned, and the justification was only that the women after getting married, they are more and more absent due to various domestic chores and their domestic responsibilities, so they are not paying any attention towards their work. So that is how a woman who is married will not be eligible to work in that company. And various regions were there. So court struck down this restriction on the women employment, and the court held that it is not evident that the working women or the married women were more likely to be absent from the services. The unmarried women can also be absent from the services. Similarly, the widows who are having the children, they may also be absent from the services. Then why only the married women? So the court has struck down this law which is there for giving the termination on getting the married. Another case that was related to the marriage regarding issues for the women, that was C.V. Muthamma versus Union of India. This was a case decided by the Supreme Court in 1979. And you see that it's not only the working women who are at the lower level, but at the very senior level. This was a case of a woman who was in the Indian Defense, Indian Foreign Services, and she filed the petition before the Supreme Court because when she got married, the rules of the Indian Foreign Services, those rules prohibits for the appointment of the married woman, and requiring that unmarried women employment in the foreign services. And if any women who has to be married, then a prior permission has to be taken from the foreign services. So this rule was challenged by C.V. Muthamma in this case, and the Supreme Court held that that the government has to overhaul. What is to be overhauled? The government has to be overhauled all the service rules which are related to this sex discrimination. And the court has very strongly directed the government that they have to remove all those rules which are considered to be the stain on the sex discrimination. Again, you see a similar type of the judgment was given by the Supreme Court in 1981, and this is Air India versus Nargesh Mirza. Now here in this case, you see that Air India has made certain rules that the air hostesses who are in job, if they are marrying after 4 years of this job, then they have to be terminated from the services. This is one. And any married woman who is there after getting first pregnancy, if she becomes pregnant, then her services will be terminated. Now this was challenged, and the Supreme Court held that the dismissal of a pregnant air hostess amounts to compelling the poor air hostess not to have any children, and thus it interferes with the ordinary course of the human nature. Because if you are saying that a woman after marriage will not become pregnant, or if she becomes pregnant, then her services will be terminated, then you are interfering in the very course of the human nature. And it seems that the termination of the services of the air hostess under such circumstances, it's not only careless or cruel act, but an open insult to the Indian womanhood. And the court, through Justice Krishna Iyer, said that the most sacrosanct and cherished institution, that is the motherhood, you are terminating that motherhood. This is not fair. And the court said that the rule which prohibits or which provides for the termination of the air hostess after getting pregnant is violative of not only Article 14 but Article 21 also. The 21 provides for the right to life and personal liberty that extends to the dignity also. So that dignity is also violated. 19(1)(g), her right to profession is violated, and equality is also violated because she is going to be the mother. That's why she has to be terminated. But the male who is going to be the father, he has not to be terminated. So it is again a violation of the equality right. Then another very important case which is related to the services, that is Maya Devi versus state of Maharashtra. It was 1986 judgment, and here the requirement that the married woman, when she is applying for any job, then she has to obtain the permission of the husband. So that only then after obtaining the permission of the husband, that is just like the no objection certificate from the husband, that if no objection has been given, only then the women can apply for that particular post. So this was challenged. This particular condition was challenged in this Maya Devi case, and the Supreme Court held that it's a matter purely personal between the husband and wife, and it is unthinkable that in these type of the social conditions, when we are living in the nuclear families, so in these social conditions which are presently prevalent, a husband can prevent a wife from being independent economically just for the women caprice of the husband. So these type of the rules which are interfering or hindering the economic independence of the women, those are violative of Article 14, 15 and 16, and the court struck down this particular provision which asks for the prior permission of the husband to go into the job. Then another case which is related to the working women, that is related to the privacy and dignity of the women concerned, that is Mrs. Neera Mathur versus Life Insurance Corporation of India, and that is of 1992 case. Now here in this case, what happened, Miss Neera, she was appointed in the LIC, and after joining, when she has asked for the maternity leave, because at the time of joining she was pregnant, and the leave was granted to her, but when she rejoined after this maternity leave, she was given the termination notice, and she was also given some of the questionnaire which she has to fill before that termination. Now, if you see that the questionnaire which was to be filled by that lady Neera Mathur, that was challenged before the Supreme Court of India under Article 21 of the Constitution. And the Supreme Court judges, after seeing that questionnaire, they were shocked. And they find that these type of the questionnaires which sought the information about the dates of the menstrual cycle and the past pregnancies of the women, this is a clear invasion in the privacy of the person concerned, and that could not be made out. So here the Supreme Court has declared that these are types of the questionnaires which are being asked by the lady, these are entering into the, or these are making indoors in the privacy of the women, which are not to be there, which is violative of right to privacy and right to dignity of the women concerned, and declared that this is unconstitutional. Then again, you see a very historic ruling which was given by the Supreme Court recently on 17th February, that is relating to all army officers in the army. You see that they were not treated equally. Equality right was being infringed by the army. So here you see that is the Secretary of Ministry of Defense versus Babita Punia. It was 2020 judgment where the Supreme Court has said that all the women who are in the army officers, they are eligible for permanent commissions, and they are allowing to work with all the commanding roles which are also available to the male counterpart. So this ruling can be considered to be a great leap towards the equality rights of the women in army, and because this right to equality is also considered to be right to rationality, because if you are rational, then you will work in a manner which will not discriminate the right. You see that in this particular case, the government, that is the Union Government of India, they have supplied certain notes that is related to the women, that why they are not giving them permanent commission. The note which was given by the Union of India, that is the plant in this case, that is relating to the physiological limitations of the women, that if we be going to give them permanent commission, then it will be hindered by their motherhood, by their child care, and there are certain other physiological limitations also. There are dangers of the women if they are captured by the enemy and they are becoming the prisoners of war, then what would happen, all these things. But the Supreme Court here in this case has directed that these women shall be treated with equality, they will be given permanent commission, and the rules in this regard shall be made by the government within 3 months of the decision. So the rules have been made, as I have heard, and it was a decision of 17th February. Now, so these are the cases which are directly related to the working women in the employment, in the services, relating to their equality rights, relating to their privacy rights and dignity rights. Now, another point which I'm now starting talking to you is that related to the women as the guardian, women in the property rights and other related issues which are there in the personal laws as well as in the property laws. Now, Geeta Hariharan versus the Reserve Bank of India, that was a judgment of 1999. This was a case which is related to the natural guardianship. Now, in the Hindu Minority and Guardianship Act, Section 6 of that act, that simply provides that the father is the natural guardian of the children. And after father, mother shall be the guardian, natural guardian. Now, here in this case, what happened that there were certain loan and other things which have been to be taken from the Reserve Bank of India. And in that case, the mother, that she was going to the bank and she was not being treated as the natural guardian of the child concerned because the father was alive. So the provision under Section 6, which says that the father shall be the natural guardian and after father, the mother shall be the natural guardian. So this word after was being interpreted by the Supreme Court in such a way so that it is now considered that this father after father does not mean that the father is no more or the father has been died. It simply means that if the father is not available at that place or father is not able or eligible at that place because due to some mental we can say infirmity, due to some unsoundness of mind, due to some other reasons, father may not be available at the place at that time. So if the father is not there, then the mother cannot act as the natural guardian. So here the Supreme Court held that we feel that it is expedient to record that the word after does not necessarily mean after the death of the father. And this is how, when the Supreme Court has given this decision, then the act was duly amended, and now mother and father both are the natural guardian and the word after is used that who is present at that time, whether it's a mother or the father, both may be the natural guardian. Then another point of discussion which has made the women empowered by the Supreme Court, that is related to this prenatal diagnostic techniques. You all know that there are certain techniques through which the sex can be determined in womb, and the fetus is being killed because if it is found to be of the girl child. So this is the great, we can say, harassment as well as the violation of the rights of the women to get the birth or to be alive. So there was a case decided by the Supreme Court that was Center for Inquiry into Health and Allied Themes versus Union of India 2002, known as the SIHAT. This is an NGO. The government, the parliament has passed an act, a PNDT, it is known as the PNDT, Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques Act of 1996. And through this act, various acts of the sex determination have been banned and the person has to be punished. Those clinics, etc., who were applying these practices, they were to be banned. So these are the provisions in that act of 1996. But you see that this 1996 act was not implemented till 2002. When this judgment was given by the Supreme Court in 2002, only after that certain amendments were made in the Act of 1996, and then this particular law was implemented. So you see that the guidelines in Vishakha case given in 1996, Act was passed in 2030. The guidelines were, the Act was passed in 1996 in PNDT, and it could be implemented and applicable only after the direction from the Supreme Court. So these type of the, attitude on the part of the government, on the part of the legislature, on the part of the executive, you see that there is nothing like that they are treating them or women with the inequality, or the women is being discriminated everywhere. Now, another case which is related to the women, that is a landmark judgment on the acid attacks, where again the women has been given some favor by the Supreme Court. That is Lakshmi versus Union of India. It was decided in 2006 by the Supreme Court, and this was a public interest litigation which was filed before the Supreme Court. And the basic point here for filing the this public interest litigation is just to give certain directions in favor of the acid attack survivors. And Lakshmi, that was the name of the case. You know that she was a minor girl at the time when she was attacked, and there were 3 men who have attacked or thrown the acid on her face in New Delhi, and because she has refused to marry one of the men, Naeem Khan, and then thereafter she faced various physical trauma, mental trauma. So this public interest litigation was filed. So the public interest litigation thought that there must be the amendments in the Indian Penal Code, Criminal Procedure Code. At the same time, there must be a complete ban on the sale of the acid, because acid is very easily available, and it also encourages the culprits, and they can have the acid purchased from the shops, and then they can use it for any purposes. Further, the prosecution of the acid throwers as well as the rehabilitation of the acid attack victims. So these were certain points which this particular case has been filed before the Supreme Court, and in number of cases the Supreme Court has issued the guidelines, and by issuing those guidelines you see that in Indian Penal Code there were amendment, and by that amendment you see that acid attack has been made a special offense under section 326 of the Constitution. Then the court has given the directions on the ban of the sale of this acid, and at the same time there must be an inventory or register is to be maintained by the shopkeeper to whom it is selling, and the person who is the customer or who is coming to have this acid, he should not be below the age of the 18 years of age. Then when there is a case of the acid attack, then the victim should be given rupees 3 lakh at one time. Then the health care is to be taken of that particular acid attack survivor. And now you see in 2016, this Person with Disability Act also provides that acid attack is one of the ground of the disability. So that is a part of the disability. And now whatever remedies, whatever rights are available to the disabled persons, acid attack victim survivor who is also considered to be a disabled. So this was in Lakshmi versus Union of India. Then another case you see, which is relating to the dignity in the matters of the rape victims, because these are the issues which are directly hampering not only the right to equality, right to profession, but also the dignity and privacy, the very right to life and personal liberty also. So this Lilu versus State of Haryana, this was a 2013 judgment, and it is for the first time that the agony and trauma you see of the rape victims, that prior to this judgment, the court which was relying on this two-finger test, which has to be given the character certification to women, that was totally rejected by the Supreme Court. And the court held that the rape survivors, they are also entitled to legal recourse that does not providing to re-traumatize those and to violate their physical or mental integrity and dignity. And this two-finger test was considered to be against the basic right of the privacy and dignity of the women. And the court held that the right to consent of the victim must also be considered proper, and medical procedures should not be carried out in such a manner so that it may be proved to be cruel, it may be inhuman or degrading treatment with the women concerned, and health should be the paramount consideration while dealing with the gender-based issues. So this was the decision of the Supreme Court in this Lilu versus Union State of Haryana 2013. Then again, another area of this dignity and privacy, that is related to the unwed mothers, the mothers who are not married. This was ABC versus the state of NCT Delhi. It was 2015, where the court has considered that the dignity and privacy is very important for the women, and held that this unwed mother belonging to one of the Christian, because in this case, if you see, it's a Christian woman. So in Christian faith is not bound to disclose the name of the child's father. So the unwed mother, they have the full rights as a guardian of the child, and there is no need to take the name of the father with the person, that the father's consent for the guardianship right is not required. So there is another extension, we can say, where the women is again empowered on the basis of the dignity, privacy, and equality right. Then some more issues which are related to the expansion, or we can say new moral issues which are coming up, and the Supreme Court is giving a leading judgment in that respect. That is unwed mother we have discussed. Now live-in relationships, that you know that marriage, which is considered to be one of the institution in every religion, and that marriage has to be there. But now we are progressing towards these type of the cases where marriages are not considered to be the only solution, and the women and men, that is two persons of opposite sex, they can live together even without marriage. So this has been legalized by the Supreme Court for first time in Khushbu case, and finally in Dhanulal case, because once the consenting male and female, they are living together for a remarkable time, and that they are also having all the related rights which are there available to those persons who are in the who are living as a married person. So whether it be a matter of succession in the property, whether it's a matter of succession and inheritance of the rights of the children who are born out of that live-in relationship. So this all has been legalized by the Supreme Court in this Dhanulal and Ganeshan. This was a 2015 judgment. So in this case, we see that the case is related to the property dispute of a man who was living for 20 years without marriage. And the Supreme Court held that the child who are born from that marriage, they are entitled to inherit the property from the person concerned. Then relating to the maintenance, etc., to the women, you see that the Supreme Court has again taken initiative wherein the women have been considered to be with full dignity and having the equality right. And in 1985, there was one case decided by the Supreme Court. It was Muhammad Ahmad Khan versus Shah Banu Begum. So this was very important judgment, and here there is a provision in the Criminal Procedure Code under Section 125, which provides for the maintenance to the women, that is the wife also. So here in this case, what happened that this Muslim women, and this is a case of the Muslim women, then the husband's liability to maintain his wife beyond the period of iddat, that was not there. And the court held that section 125, that is of the Code of Criminal Procedure, imposes a legal obligation on all the husbands. It is secular in nature. It is not like that it is a matter related to the Muslim or it's a matter related to the Hindu. This act is secular, and therefore any woman or any person who is a wife, that she is entitled to get the maintenance under section 125 of the Criminal Procedure Code. But you see that this 1985 judgment of the Supreme Court was undone by the government, by the parliament, and an act was enacted in 1986, Muslim Women Protection of Rights Act. So after that, the situation became the same. Then again, in Lily Thomas versus Union of India, it was 2000 judgment of the Supreme Court. And here the Supreme Court has given a direction that if a person or is converting from one religion to another religion, then the marriage which exists will not automatically be terminated or cancelled, and there is not a ground for divorce on the basis of the conversion. So this was the judgment of Supreme Court in Lily Thomas. Then again, you see that in Shamima Farooqi versus Shahid Khan, this was latest judgment of 2015. And again, it's a matter related to the maintenance, and the court has said very vehemently that women cannot be treated as beggars. So every time they are asking or seeking for the maintenance, this is their right to seek the maintenance from the husband, whether he is in job, he is not in job, he is in service, he is retired. That is not material. But once a wife is seeking the maintenance, this is the duty of the husband to give the maintenance. So after divorce, of course, maintenance. So this was the case of 2015, and the court has said that women is entitled for maintenance, and she is not the beggar to claim every time that she has to be given the maintenance. Then again, we see that the rights of the widowed daughter in the property, whether she'll be entitled to get the maintenance from her father or not. So there is another case which was decided by the Supreme Court in Balwant for 2000, when the court said that a widowed daughter is also entitled to get the maintenance from the father's property if a husband is not there, and she is not getting any property from the husband's side. So she will be maintained from the father's property. Then in 2017, a very, we can say, important case which was there, or landmark case related to the triple talaq, and that is Shaira Banu versus Union of India. And you see that triple talaq, that has been declared invalid by the Supreme Court, and the court said that the practice of instant triple talaq, which is also known as the talaq-e-biddat, so that is not given in the Quran, and therefore this is not valid. And if any person who follow or who practices this triple talaq, then this would be violated, and therefore the court questioned that whether the custom which is theologically sinful, or why was it is still part of the practice of a community. So this is how the court said that this triple talaq is invalid, and it has also directed the parliament, the government, to enact the law. So parliament has come out with the first, it was the ordinance on the Muslim women protection of rights on marriage, and later on it has become an act. And now, if you see that there is any pronouncement of talaq, triple talaq by a Muslim husband upon his wife, then by words or spoken, written, or through electronic form or any other media whatsoever, it shall be void and illegal. And at the same time, if the husband pronounces talaq upon his wife, then he shall be punished with imprisonment for a term which may extend to 3 years, as well as he will also be liable for fine also. So this is how you see that in the matters of triple talaq, the court has taken the lead in the religious matters also uh, for upholding the rights of the women. Then in Sabrimala case, because this is a case which was very much in news every time. It was filed by a public interest litigation, Indian Young Lawyers Association, wherein you see that there was one of the temple in Kerala known as the Ayappa temple, where the women of 10 to 50 years of age, that the women who are in the group of 10 to 50 years of age, meaning thereby they are in the menstruating age, they were not allowed to enter the temple premises for offering the puja, etc. And this was challenged in this public investigation, and the court held that this is a clear violation of the right to equality, right to religion of the women. If the male are allowed, then why the women cannot be allowed? So therefore, the court has given the directions in this particular case, also known as the Sabrimala, and the women will also confer the right to perform, to practice their religion as the other women are, because this age group, that was not considered to be reasonable, because it is related to the privacy and dignity of the women concerned, and that's how the ruling has been given. Then again, you see that similar type of the case judgments have also been given by the Supreme Court, be it related to the Shani Signapur, where the women were not allowed earlier, but now they are allowed. And similarly, there are various temples and other places where the women were not allowed. And one more, you see that it was a Pune-based Muslim couples. They also thought that the right of the Muslim women to enter the mosques freely and to offer namaz. So in January 2020, this All India Muslim Personal Board also filed an affidavit before the Supreme Court that the women in the mosque entry is allowed as per Islam, but they can offer prayers at their home. So this is there the women have been conferred with this equality right to enjoy the right to religion also. And then again, if we see that the women related to this marriages, because in conversion from one religion to another religion, then whether this right of the lady or right of the women are hampered, violated or not. So this was considered by the Supreme Court in Sarla Mudgal versus Union of India case, that uniform civil code is to be there, and the husband who has converted to Islam, to Muslim religion, the only purpose was that to have more marriages than one. So this is how the cases have been there, and the Supreme Court has taken lead in giving the directions and to upholding the rights of the women. Then Mary Roy versus State of Kerala, again another case of the women's right to property, wherein a case related to this Christian community in Kerala. And the women, they were prevented from the inheriting the property of the because of the patriarchal traditions, we can say. So here again, the court has delivered a landmark judgment where the court said that the women's right to seek this equal share in her father's property is a part of her fundamental right under Article 14 of the Constitution. Then for Uniform Civil Code, we have seen that in Christianity again, the Indian Succession Act, which was of 1925, that said that the women are not entitled to share the property in the paternal or in the paternal law from the maternal home. So this John Ballumattom case, the court has clearly said that this is the old and archaic law, and now we have to follow what is given under Article 14, that is right to equality. And that section which says that the women are not entitled to share the property from as an inheritance in section 118, that has been declared unconstitutional in this John Ballumattom case. And very recently, you see that on August 10th, the Supreme Court has again declared in Vinita Sharma versus Rakesh Sharma that the women is entitled to have a share in the paternal property. So there the Supreme Court held that the daughter will be having the right to property even after the father, even after the death of the father, or when the property is belonging to the father died, even after that the property will be given to the women, that is the daughter concerned. Because you know that the equality rights to share the property has been amended, and that was in 2005. So what the courts were doing, they were interpreting that only those property can be shared by with the daughters who are there after 2005. But this was the landmark judgment in the sense that it has applied retrospectively, that those fathers who died before 2005 even, and the daughter is seeking a share in the property, then she will be entitled to the property. And the court has said through Justice Arun Mishra in this particular judgment, I'll like to quote that judgment, which says that once a daughter, always a daughter. A son is a son till he is married. The daughter shall remain a co-partner throughout the life, and irrespective of whether her father is alive or not. Though this judgment, once a daughter, always a daughter, has been further criticized by at social media also, then why this is a distinction between a daughter and a son, why the son becomes son does not remain a son after he got married. So but this was the judgment which was given justice by Justice Arun Mishra, that once a daughter, always a daughter, a son is a son till he is married. So I don't know, I'm not going into detail to explain and to give any interpretation of that judgment, but the only point which I would like to discuss with you is that the law to share the property is equally available to the woman, to the daughter, as it is available to the son. So this is another case wherein the Supreme Court has upheld the rights of the women to empower them on the property wise also, or economically also. Then there was a case, Pratibha Rani versus Suraj Kumar, 1985 judgment. You see that dowry, we have a Dowry Prohibition Act 1961, wherein any type of the giving and taking of the dowry is a criminal act, an offense, and the person can be punished for that, any party, whether from the maternal side or from the paternal side. If it is giving or taking, then this is an offense and is liable to be punished. But in that way, we see what the old Hindu custom says, that the women who is coming with some of the own property, that is known as the Istridhan. So what was the custom which was prevalent, that the women who is coming from her maternal home, paternal home to her in-laws home, then whatever property she is bringing, known as the Istridhan, that property was having a control or the custody of her husband. And here in this case, this was challenged that Istri Dhan should remain with the Istri, it should not be in the custody of the husband concerned. So in Pratibha Rani Suraj Kumar, the court has said that it cannot be said that upon entering the matrimonial home, the ownership of the Istri Dhan property of a married woman is placed in the custody of her husband or in-laws, and that remains with the women concerned, or that Istridhan, that is the name is Istridhan, that would be with the Istri only, and that will not be going to other person, either the husband or any other in-laws. So this was the decision. Then move further, we see that there are certain other cases which are related to the privacy and dignity also of the women concerned. And again, this is one of the public interest litigation, Gaurav Jain versus the Union of India. Now you see that we are having a system of the prostitution in the society. We have the laws also. Constitution also provides for a ban on that under Article 23, which speaks about the human trafficking. But still we find that this is one of the things which is available in the society. But at the same time, the children of those prostitutes, they are also being treated with discrimination. So public interest litigation was filed in the Supreme Court in 1997 in this Gaurav Jain versus Union of India, and where the Supreme Court has said that it has also given certain directions, comprehensive directions to the government for the rescue and rehabilitation of the prostitutes, their children, so that it has to prevent the second generation prostitution. And at the same time, the court has also said that the children, they should be included in the mainstream. They should not be, treated unequally, and they have to be entered in the schools where the other children are studying. So these are certain guidelines and instructions which was given by the Supreme Court in this particular case. And secondly, related to this, we see another judgment which was given by the Supreme Court in the state of Maharashtra versus Madhukar Narayan case, where you see that police inspector, he entered the house of the women consider, and he has tried to ravish her during inquiry when the question was asked from that inspector. So he said that because the lady was of the easy virtue, so I entered the home and I tried to do that. But here what happened, the court held that even a woman of easy virtue is entitled to privacy, and no one can invade her privacy. And when one likes to enter, it is not up to that person, but it is the choice of the lady concerned whether she is of easy virtue or not. So she is equally entitled to the protection of law, and that's how this judgment is known as a very important with reference to all the women folk, whether they are belonging to the service class, they are belonging to the domestic class, or they are from the other disciplines. Then we see that the Supreme Court has given various directions, be it related to the honor killings. That Shakti Vahini case is very important because women are being killed and murdered for marrying the persons. Then you see that one more case that the persons who are marrying the women, they are leaving them behind. So registration of marriage has been made compulsory by the Supreme Court. Datta Singh versus state of UP way back. At the same time, this inter-religion marriages were also considered to be valid within the law. Then the cases related to this promising to marry, that the person, male and female, they are living together. The male is promising to marry, but later on not marrying. So these type of the directions have been given by the Supreme Court in all these cases. In rape matters also, the court has not seen that the lady is Indian national or a foreign national. There was one case decided by the Supreme Court in Chandrima Das versus Railways, that a Dhaka national, she came here in India, in Calcutta, and she was residing in the railways guest house in the railway platform, and there she was molested and raped. And the case was filed, so the plea was that she is not Indian, how the Indian constitution would be applicable. And the Supreme Court in this case, considering the dignity of the women, considering the right to life and liberty of a women, that may be from any origin, but women is a woman. So that was a very landmark judgment where the Supreme Court has given 10 lakhs compensation on that, and that's how we see that this Supreme Court judgment are always in favor of the women upholding their rights, whether it be related to their dignity and privacy, it's related to the equality, it's related to their economic right, it's related to their political rights even. So in all these judgments, because there are plethora of judgments given by the Supreme Court since independence, now we are reaching or crossing 70 years for the enforcement of the Constitution, and the Supreme Court is working since then. The we can say the style and the trend is being changed by the Supreme Court also. Now, Supreme Court is interpreting liberally the rights of the women, which we have witnessed right from Vinita Sharma case of 10th August as well as the Bhavita Punia case of 17th February 2020. The Supreme Court is now giving these judgments in favor of the women, in all matters relating to the women dignity, employment, equality, etc., etc. So in that way, now because the list is very long and I cannot discuss all the judgments here, but I'd be happy if there is any question and I can come out with other cases as an answer to your question. Thank you very much.